So thank you very much for joining Chris and I today for this exclusive HBXL user event on planning for the future. That's your kind of your personal financial future out of your business. You might be thinking that you need to put money aside for your retirement, or maybe you're just wondering what to do with your business longer term and how to potentially exit the business in the future. And obviously, like most things in life, to do that successfully, it's all about planning for it. We often hear at HBXL that builders are saying, literally for their health's sake or their sanity even, they want to get out at some point. It's nice to have an end game. Obviously, we're not all running businesses just for the fun of it. You know, it's paying the bills today, but it's also got to help fund our future beyond you know, the main working age. Maybe some of you watching are wanting to retire early. I know that is an aspiration of some of our builders. So by way of introduction, I'm Jo Mulgrew and I'm the Managing Director here at HBXL. And before we get into the meat and potato, so to speak, of the planning, the financial planning session today, I just wanted to say for you users, if you haven't already heard, in the next couple of months, HBXL is going to be launching a brand new software tool called Build Projects. That is a construction cloud. What does that mean? It's all about managing your building projects and online. So whether you're in the van, whether you're at home, whether you're in the office or on site, you can share, plan and manage your project remotely. This is a cracking new tool, so we'll be telling you more about that. Which nicely segues into, obviously, good planning is key to the success of running a building company. And obviously, good planning, good financial management, good profits is obviously going to help with the next topic that Chris is here to talk to us about. So nicely segues as Chris into today. So Chris, hi, firstly, I should say, before I jump in.
Joe.
Thanks for chatting with me today.
No worries.
Great stuff. So Chris is an IFA, that's an independent financial advisor, and he's one of the lead consultants at Comera Professional. And Comera is a valued partner of HBXL, and Chris's expertise, he's going to expand on that in just a mo, but his expertise is in helping company owners life plan financially. And that starts earlier than you might think or hope, but it's a necessary evil. So Chris, perhaps tell us a little bit more about your role, what you do at Comera Professional.
Yeah, thank you very much for that introduction, Joe. Thank you for having me as well. As you say, yes, I'm an independent financial advisor. So what that means is I help individuals and business owners, like maybe a lot of the people watching today, help plan their retirement. And as you said earlier, that may start earlier than you would imagine. So what we do is we look at a person's current situation, make an analysis of that, and then help them take the steps necessary to reach their retirement goals sometime in the future. Everyone's different, everyone has their own circumstances, but what we do is help them on the journey and be very much a helping hand so that they reach the retirement goals. It may not be retirement, it could be other goals as well, but generally speaking, it is retirement that we help with and help them to get there at a time that they want to with a retirement income that they'll be happy with as well.
Okay. So I'm pleased to say, just on that note, that Chris has got another role, which is having joined TEAM HBXL as one of our financial coaches. And Chris's work kind of goes hand in hand with one of our other TEAM HBXL coaches, which is our accountancy coach, James. And between the two guys there at Comera, we can help you kind of structure your business finances to enable your personal life kind of financial goals. So those two things are kind of inextricably linked. You know, you need
that's right.
You need a successful, healthy business with enough slosh in the machine to be paying for your future financial kind of aspirations, your post construction days. Yeah. So we have several TEAM HBXL coaches, as I've said. So James and Chris are two of those. We also have another business mentor. He kind of almost starts before the accountancy side. It's about analysing your business, making sure that you are charging what you're worth, that the projects that you're taking on are financially rewarding enough for the stress of taking them on. Every day counts in construction, and therefore each project that you're doing needs to kind of contribute positively and not just drain you financially and mentally in doing so. So between the guys here, we've got a really good team. So do look out for the Team HBXL coaches and emails. And with each of those coaches, you get a complimentary session with them. So that's a full hour to discuss your requirements. You can have an hour with each of the guys and kind of like piece that information together to get a vision of what you might like to do with the business and structure it for your personal goals. But today, I'm kind of got slightly off piece there. Today with Chris, we're focusing on the hugely significant life goal of both retiring or otherwise known as not running your building firm anymore.
Yeah.
And what that might look like. So all the hard work that you're doing now is leading up obviously to a moment in time. I think most people are thinking, like, when can I stop doing this? I'd like to be sitting on the beach or sitting in the garden or maybe pursuing a different business venture or other life goal. Who knows? Maybe some people listening want to go paragliding or traveling around South America in their later years or whatever. We're talking, Chris, aren't we, today about what we need to do now to have this comfortable income when you're not running your firm in the future.
Sure, that's it.
Yeah.
So really that'll be around, like I just say, around retirement, but it can also be savings, other investments that you might have. We help with things like cash flow modeling as well, because that's actually a very underrated tool, because if you can map out where you are now and where you'd like to be in the future, that gives some very much meat on the bone, so to speak, in terms of how much you would need to save to meet your life goals later on down the line, whatever that may be. So that's a number of the services that we do offer, as well as tax advice and things like inheritance tax planning as well. So there's a lot that we can help with and put people in the right direction to meet their life goals later on.
So I guess it almost starts from the end to going backwards, really. What is it you're wanting to achieve? What is it you think you might want to do? And then let's work back to work out what's feasible.
Yeah, exactly.
But unfortunately, we've got to acknowledge right now, don't we, Chris, that there is somewhat of a significant kind of elephant in the room, which is the cost of living crisis. Mm-hmm. We're all experiencing this, all sorts, whether it's your energy bills, petrol, food, everything. So that could, I guess, hamper in some ways kind of retirement plans. Do you think?
Yeah, I think in terms of the inflation picture we're looking at the moment, it's currently at a 40-year high. So we haven't seen inflation this high since the early 1980s. So this has been caused really by mainly a lack of supply, which is a hangover from COVID. So a lot of businesses are getting back to full capacity at the moment. They've been shut down in a lot of industries for a couple of years. And now a lot of businesses are having trouble getting back up to full capacity that they were at in 2019. So really, this is a global issue. It's not something which is local at all. So there have been a lot of bottlenecks in a lot of industries. People as well have been locked up for a year or a year and a half or so, and they have more disposable income. So they are looking to make more purchases, but the supply side of things hasn't got back up to full capacity yet. So that's really where the issue lies with inflation. Hopefully over the next few months, this will sort itself out and more people will start going back into work. But a lot of people, with the exception of the age group between in their 20s, the labour participation has actually gone down, and a lot of people haven't gone back to work at all. So it's actually as well finding the actual labour participants to actually go back to work full time. So this is very much a global issue in terms of actually finding the people to fill the roles. So
that's significant in construction, for definite.
Yeah, for sure. So finding the right labour supply is difficult, particularly in the construction industry, as you point out. But it is a global issue wherever you are. So there is the supply side issue. There's increased demand. There's the Russia-Ukraine conflict going on as well, which has contributed to things like increased petrol prices and other commodities as well, such as sunflower oil and other precious metals like nickel as well. That's heavily mined in Russia. So putting these sanctions on that the EU and other countries have put on Russia recently has meant that things like gas prices have gone through the roof, as everyone knows. So it's gone up, the cap has been increased in April, and it's going to be, I think, increase again in October. So we've got these two issues with the gas supply coming up for consumers, and that counts for businesses as well as individuals. So everyone's going to be feeling the pinch in that regard, but also food prices, commodity prices that businesses may need to pay for their own raw materials as well. That's also an issue right now. So to combat this, central banks, they're going to have to raise interest rates to dampen consumer demand. They can't do anything about the supply side. So we're looking at interest rates rising throughout the year, probably peak out at around 3%, maybe 3.25 come the end of the year. Beyond that, it probably will level out. So we're looking at around 3 to maybe 3.25% by the end of the year. It's around 1% at the moment, but Bank of England has indicated that it will increase. Over in the US, the Federal Reserve has said it will increase as well, and they've recently done a rate hike as well. So throughout the year, they don't want to crash the economy, so they can't raise it too quickly or too sharply. So it's going to be spread out over the year to dampen down the demand side of things, whilst at the same time the supply issues sort themselves out. So that's what they're hoping for. That's what they're keeping their fingers crossed on. We had inflation data yesterday in the US, which showed it was still high at 8.3% year on year. That's only a very small decrease from March, which was 8.5%, 8.5%. So it's still very high. And I think the market itself was hoping that it was going to be lower than what was actually given as a figure yesterday. So it's still high at the moment. We don't know how long it's going to persist for. Hopefully, everyone's keeping their fingers crossed that it does start to come down, and there could be quite a sharp drop-off at some point, but we just don't know when that's going to be. Hopefully, sometime later this year, we'll come back to that and see exactly what the inflation figures are going to be. But at this time, it has been high, and it has been high for a few months now. And that has hit things as well, such as investment values too, because a lot of the companies that you may be invested in are what are called growth stocks. So that means they're hoping for things like lower interest rates and a strong economy to help them grow over the future. So they've been hit by the rises in interest rates and looking forward to the further interest rates to come too. So it's been a very difficult year from the inflation point of view, the investment side of things as well. But hopefully in the next few months we start to see improvement in that. But for the time being, we're not out of the woods yet, so to speak. But over the next few months, hopefully that will temper down. Okay.
So I guess back in terms of the UK situation, so inflation is looking like circa 10%, isn't it? It was kind of 9%, but I'm thinking it might be 10% this year, and obviously then that at the same time is kind of tempered with, or rather exacerbated, rather, I think that's the word I'm looking for, in terms of interest rates going up. So you've got the combination of kind of general commodity inflation and then interest rates. So people's mortgages are going up, what have you. So I think in terms of construction work, things might start to slow up as people kind of find those two things biting at the same time. Yeah. And as you say, they're trying to smooth it out. But I think it would be wrong to think that, it's not going to impact, I guess, brand new work for constructors, for builders over the coming period. So, so you were going to say something on that?
I think people have been saving more money though over the last couple of years, and there's still a lot of construction projects going on. There's no doubt about it. I don't think that has really slowed up. In fact, I think recently It's probably picked up quite a lot over the last year or so. So in terms of actual projects that are going on, you probably see in and around your own neighbourhood lots of building projects from people doing extensions or changes to their house. So the work is certainly still going on, and I think that will still continue as well. One of the things with inflation as well is that people are going to be demanding higher wages as well. So if a company themselves aren't going to pay increases in inflation, and there's a lack of supply in the labour force, then it's certainly a buyer's market in terms of the job market at the moment, in terms of finding jobs which can pay more. So there's certainly, even though that the inflation rate is going up, people have got the option to find other jobs as well, which may pay more in line with those inflation increases too. And that will knock on to whether or not they choose to do a house extension, for instance, because maybe then they'll be able to afford it. So in terms of the actual spiral itself, the wage spiral could be going upwards as well. And that will continue the inflation side of things. So you have to temper that as well. But looking out going forward in terms of projects and whatnot, I think that will continue, because people, first of all, they have savings, and they may well get pay rises as well from their jobs as well. Inflation.
Well, I guess that's pretty good news. I guess my experience was slightly different. So it's really interesting to have these conversations. Was that there's obviously a lot of work going on at this moment in time from work previously won, but brand new inquiries are slightly challenging. Number wise have dropped off a bit, but here's hoping it stays strong for everybody listening. But as we're hearing from Chris, if your profit margins were already tight, and clearly every builder is concerned about the rising inflation on material costs, but we've got to be applying that on the labour side as well, your subcontractors, and making sure that if you have got these jobs going on in the future, you don't just want accurate quotes in terms of including every tube and mastic, every labourer's hour, etc., your plant, your wastage, your wear and tear, and your overheads. You really need to be thinking about the cost of the job when it starts and for how long that job is going on. If you're not starting a project, say for 6-12 months, and that's a 6-12 month project in itself, you've got a lot of kind of built up inflation on all of those kind of resource types and materials, your labor, your subcontract, and your plant. So you mustn't rely on a quotation that is today's price. And those watching with Estimator Express, you'll know hopefully that there's a feature in the software which gives you a predicted inflation rate. As we were just saying, it's about 10% at the moment. So you get 10% on the different resource types, and it will give you the predicted inflation cost to the client, so that you're not absorbing that when it comes to quoting. And I know that's quite challenging. It's a psychological thing. And Chris, we find that builders are saying, well, if I give the customer this quote that with the inflated prices, I'm not going to look competitive because I'm going to look expensive. But from a psychological perspective, you have to get over that and say, right, well, what is the point of me tendering for this job, going for this job, winning it on the basis of a price which is really not a sustainable price? You're going to spend more than that. You're going to have to bring more expensive labour in at some point, presumably, and you're just going to be paying for that. You're paying for that client adding value to their home effectively. So that's one of the. Sorry.
It is a difficult scenario, maybe a bit of a chicken and egg with that one. So you've got to make sure that you're still profitable as a business when you take on these kind of projects. Otherwise, it's not worth doing. But at the same time, do you want to look expensive compared to your competitors? So there's a bit of a lag time that's going on, really, in terms of the project starting and how much you quote for today, because those prices would have changed, and the customer will look at you and say, hang on a minute, that seems expensive compared to others at the moment who may not be taking the increasing costs into consideration. So you've got to be careful with these things and explain very carefully to the customer that, well, they'll be aware of inflation. So you just need to spell it out to them and say, look, the cost of materials are going up, the cost of labour is going up. When we start this project in 6 to 12 months' time, it may be even more than what it is now. So you've got to be very clear with your explanations and the costings, exactly what that's likely to be, to make sure that you're still profitable. I wouldn't hide from the fact that businesses are there to be profitable. You wouldn't want to take a job on without making a profit on it, unless there's a very specific reason for that. Maybe more later on down the line. But if you're taking on a job, I would be very upfront with the customer and say, yep, these are the costs that there is. We do need to make a profit on this, otherwise we can't operate as a business. It's why we exist. And they'll be very understanding of that. I think people are actually quite forgiving when it comes to the cost itself, and so long as that you're not being extortionate and you can lay out the cost very clearly to them, then they'll be very understanding. So I wouldn't run away from that at all.
Yeah, well, I think that's good advice, Chris. And we've got a whole session, guys, listening, dedicated to the kind of psychology of quoting coming up in the next couple of months with Simon, our other TEAM HBXL coach from the Better Business Group, on this very subject of the psychology of quoting and getting that right. But in the meantime, I'll just point out that both the Estimator Express software and our HBXL estimating service can kind of churn out 2 quotes for you for your clients. So that's one using today's price, so you can say to your customer, this is today's price, but you can also have a secondary quote which says, and taking account of inflation at the current rate, this is the predicted price for the job start date. And it could be somewhere in between, but that way you're transparent, you're clear with your customer. And as you said, Chris, I think customers are perhaps a little bit more forgiving, especially if they'll then go back to their other, if there's other builders quoting for this work and say, well, what are you doing about this? Yeah. And I think if you spell out that you're not going to get the project that you want if you go with just today's price, with that your competitor's price that's cheap, they're not going to get the completed project. They're going to have to stop partway through. So it's perhaps not it's unrealistic on the client's
Absolutely, part. Yeah. You do need to be realistic with the client and say, look, we need to complete this project. This is how much it's going to cost. These are the labour costs. These are the material costs, and just spell it out to them and just have it line by line. This is exactly what it's going to be, and just say, look, we want to do a good job for you. We want to complete it on time. We want to make sure the materials are in place. We want to make sure our labour is paid fairly so that they do a good job as well. So you don't want shoddy work done. It's very important that you spell out to the client exactly what the product's going to be, and I think they will be happier with that than just to try and get it on the cheap, because we all know the old saying that if you buy cheap, you buy twice. So you don't want to come back later as a client. You don't want to come back later on and having to do repairs to work that should have been done in the first place. And as a builder, you don't want any complaints or people going to court against your own as well. So this is it's something which certainly pays in the long term, just to be upfront with all of your clients and say, look, we're here to do a good job. We're here to do it at a fair price for both you and for us. So that is certainly the best way to go to avoid problems later on down the line. And if you don't win it, you don't win it. There may be other companies out there who can do it for cheaper, but just make sure you know your value. And if you know your value and what you can give to the client, then it's got the price attached to that, which is fair. So that's certainly the way that I would go with it.
Yeah. Good advice. So if anybody's interested in the estimating service, so HBXL's estimating service, providing the 2 quotes for you, doing that for you, it's called the Profit Protect start date service. So you can find that on the estimating-service.co.uk website. But if you're an Estimator Express software user, you can obviously do that yourself using the software and using the inflated quotation. And anyway, back to the subject. I'm talking all about this because we're talking about pensions and retirement, and obviously nobody listening needs to tell me that if you're not making a profit, then that's going to affect how much you can put aside each month, each year for the future. So I think it's an important point that I have laboured. So Chris, everyone's got different life goals when it comes to freeing up funds further down the line. Often people want to pass on extra funds to help family members financially. Maybe you've got kids that could do with a leg up, or just to make life comfortable for retirement. So tell me, what are the different ways people can create those funds for the future? I'm sure there's different ways of structuring things.
Well, when it comes to saving for retirement, you've got to take into consideration there are various assets that you can utilize towards that. For instance, there are pensions, whether that be personal pensions or company pensions. You can do things like equity release. You can downsize your home when you come to retirement. You can use tax reliefs as well to help build your retirement funds. And also there's selling the business itself and what value there is in there. But there are other investments, for instance, ISAs or general investment accounts, investment bonds. So there are various different tax wrappers, so to speak, that you can use to build up a retirement fund. And there's also good old cash as well. Don't forget, you can leave cash in the bank if you think that is the safest place as well. But there are various assets that you can use. You may have a second home and have rental properties, for instance, but there are various different assets that you may or may not have at this present time that you can use towards your retirement funds. So. Okay.
So I guess there'd be a period discussing with you and uncovering the different kind of assets or goals of each individual. It's very personal, isn't it? It's not something that there's a standard approach here.
No. I mean, it is. You alluded upon it previously, just around the psychology of things as well. Some people may have grown up, let's say, seeing their parents build houses or purchase properties and have been very much influenced by that route, that they want to buy their own property. They may want to buy second properties, and they may want to rent those out, or they may want to do them up and then sell them on later. They may have been influenced by that, or they may have been negatively influenced. For instance, they may have had a bad building project, for instance, and they didn't make any money on that, and now they want to look at a different route. Or conversely, they may have invested in the past, but their investments didn't do very well, and now they're looking to diversify their portfolio. They may want to purchase a second property. They may want to pay off their mortgage a bit more. So it does depend really on the individual, their own psychology, their own experiences as well, what things like their attitude to risk is like. Can they weather downsides in the economy as we're seeing at the moment? So yeah, there's certainly, it's not a one size fits all. Everyone has their own tailored requirements. Some people may have inheritances that they don't know what to do with, and others may have previous pensions with former employers and they're not quite sure what to do with that. What's the best options? Some of them may want to help their kids, others may not. So there's an awful lot to consider when it comes to planning and what their individual goals are. So it's never a one size fits all. I mean, the products are the same wherever you are, but it just depends on how you use them and whether or not you want to use them. So there's always been a lot of talk around, let's say, pension planning and using that as a retirement tool, but it's certainly not the only one, and there's a lot of different things you can do at different times as well to help you reach your goals in the future.
So as part of Chris's TEAM HBXL kind of role, he can provide every HBXL customer who books in with a session 60 minutes of time, so a full hour to kind of uncover kind of your aspirations, the different vehicles that you could use. I'm obviously talking financial vehicles here. And help understand what might be the best way forwards, and then from there, Chris can help you choose the right tools, financial tools for you. So well worth having a look at the booking link, which we'll bring up later on, and you can have a session with Chris. So looking at pensions in a bit more detail and how we should be thinking about it. Clearly, we all know we should be thinking about it earlier rather than later. And we're probably, nearly all of us are guilty of it being later than we should have done. It's one of those things that you don't quite get round to kind of sorting out unless you've been working for a bigger company, say, where, you've got that nailed earlier on. If you're in a smaller business, it's one of those last things to kind of sort out. But going back to what I was saying earlier about your quoting and your estimating, you need to be thinking about, if you're not already, that your time, certainly your own personal time of management on the project and the business, needs to incorporate an element of pension contribution. I'm not just talking statutory contributions, I'm talking about your own personal pot building outside of this. We're going to talk to Chris in a minute about an example scenario. I won't steal your thunder, Chris, in terms of the detail on that, but you'll be surprised that you do need to add, a fair chunk in, but you can start now. You don't worry if you've left it a little bit late. So talk us through pension planning and, what our viewers could start doing now.
So as an example, let's say the average retirement pot for someone age 50 at this time is £50,000. So it's not a huge amount. And if you only had £50,000 that you want to retire on, that's not going to last you 3 years, let's say, on the average expenditure. So in terms of where people are at now, there's a big shortfall between what people have generally saved in their retirement funds and what they actually need. So in terms of the actual retirement industry, up until recently, in 2012 was when the auto-enrollment legislation came in. But prior to that, there was no need at all for companies to provide a company pension for their employees. So in terms of where the average person is at age 50, they've got a £50,000 retirement fund, which would be nowhere near enough. So in terms of plugging the gap, let's say that you wanted a retirement fund of £30,000 per annum that you wanted to live on quite comfortably. And if you're age 50 at the moment, then you've got another 12 years before the state pension kicks in. And that will give you around about £9,500 per annum if you have the full qualifying years, which you need 35 years of national insurance contributions for before you get the full amount. That's about £185 per week. So yeah, it works out around £9,500 per annum if you've got the full amount. You need 10 years to qualify for the state pension. So that's 10 years of national insurance contributions. But if you were to rely on that alone, you'd only get that at age 67. And that certainly wouldn't be enough to cover your costs on a year-by-year basis. So in terms of planning, it's really beneficial to start as early as possible. So as an example, if you were to start today, you're age 50, and you're looking to retire at age 67, you've got 12 years and you've got £50,000 on which to start on. If you were to make contributions from today, let's say you had profits of your business, then you weren't sure what to do with them. If you were to put them into a pension plan and you had £10,000, then you could put that into your pension plan and that would come straight off your company expense. That counts as a company expense, sorry. So that lowers your corporation tax as well. So if you were to make contributions, then from the business itself, that's made as a gross contribution. If you were to make personal contributions, that 10,000 would be the net amount, and that would be grossed up by 20%. So that would be a £12,500 contribution per annum. So there are two ways that you can actually make it, whether that be through your own personal funds or make it through the business as well. So it's certainly very beneficial to do that. And hopefully over time, let's say it were to grow at 5% per annum on average, then over that 12-year period, you could be looking at over £400,000 in your retirement fund at age 67, if that's the time you were looking to retire at. And from that point, you could probably make withdrawals of around £20,000 per annum. And then when added to the state pension, that will give you around £30,000 in total each year. So it's certainly with the magic of compound growth each year, your pension fund will grow, hopefully, year by year by more and more. But if you keep on making those contributions and you're to start now, then your retirement fund, even though it may be only £50,000 at age 50, by the time you get to age 67, it could be worth over £400,000 if you were to make a contribution of, say, £10,000 per annum.
Yeah. So what was new to me there, Chris, was I've always thought about, paying your pension contributions kind of almost like monthly. It's one of those, it's almost like an additional tax, isn't it? So you get your pay slip and you think, oh, that's half decent. And then your NI,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then obviously take a big stab at it for your pension monthly. But what you're saying as well is you could almost kind of be topping that up as, in a chunk, get to year end, you've got some profits, reduce your corporation tax by paying directly out of the profits from the business to your pension. So that's one way, I guess, there of reducing your tax, and also on the positive, building up your pension pot, which was news to me. So I think people should talk to you about this because I like that. That's like a double win, isn't it?
No, exactly, because the pension contribution from your business counts as a business expense. So that's one way of lowering your corporation tax. So you'd save the 19% corporation tax straight away. Then the pension itself grows in a tax-free environment as well. So there isn't any lag on the fund or drag on the fund in terms of tax when it's growing. And when you come to withdraw the funds, you get 25% tax-free as a tax-free cash lump sum payment. And then the rest is subject to income tax at your highest marginal rate, but that can be managed so that it stays within the basic rate band. Or maybe if your state pension is slightly below the personal allowance, which is £12,570, then some of it would be at the 0% rate as well. So it's very tax efficient in terms of putting monies in, and when they're in the funds itself, and when you come to withdraw it as well. So there's 3 tax benefits straight away when growing your retirement funds. As well, it's very useful as an inheritance tax planning tool because it's outside of your estate, so it doesn't contribute to your estate for inheritance tax purposes. And as well, if you were to die under the age of 75, then you can pass the fund on to whoever you want, any beneficiary, tax-free. If you were to die over the age of 75, then that would be taxed at their marginal rate of income tax, which is still very good anyway, because you can pass the fund on to your named beneficiaries. And if you were to die under the age of 75, they would get that lump sum. So even if you're age 20, let's say, as a beneficiary, you could have the pension fund paid straight out to you, depending on the age that the pension holder were to die at. But if they were over age 75, it would be taxed at the beneficiary's marginal rate of tax as well. So it's still very, very good in terms of tax efficiency from both your side and any potential beneficiary side from an income tax point of view. There's no capital gains tax from the inheritance tax point of view as well. It's very much a win-win situation from everyone's point of view. The only downside, I would say, is if you did need the money before age 55, you're not allowed to make withdrawals on the fund, but that is rising to age 57 in 2028. So just be aware that you can't make withdrawals on the pension funds until that time, because it is designed for retirement. That's why the government gives these tax advantages, because they want to encourage people to save more for retirement. So it's very important just to be aware of that, because there are instances where you may need money, and your only source of funds may be your pension, but then you can't withdraw it. So you do have to be careful of that, and that you still keep some money aside for yourself for any kind of funds that you may need in an emergency, let's say.
Okay. Wow, loads to take in there. Some really useful points, and I've definitely learned a few things. And I think I need to get on the phone to Chris after this, because there's some work I need to do on my on the pension side, my side. You're not alone, guys, watching. We're all learning a thing or two, and obviously this is Chris's profession, his trade. He knows what he's talking about. So don't be embarrassed if you haven't got your mortgage set, not your mortgage, your pension set up already, or you're not sure where to start. Their role is to help guide you. That's what they do all day, every day. And I know there's a bit of jargon in there as well, but don't worry, Chris.
It's important to be important to point out that we're not elitist in any sense. I think some people are put off by the thought of approaching a financial planner because they think, oh, I don't have enough money, or they wouldn't have time for someone like me, that I'm not their kind of client. That's not the case at all. We see anyone dependent, and it doesn't depend on the amount of money they have or their position, etc. We can help pretty much anyone who wants to help start saving for retirement. So we can look at or start helping people who may want to make contributions as little as £100 a month. So it's not like we're looking at saying, oh, you need at least £100,000 before we see you. There are advisors like that, but we're not like that. We would help anyone who needs that. So I just wanted to point that out, that we're here to help anyone who needs that.
Well, thanks, Chris. I think that's reassuring, because it kind of seems somewhat overwhelming, and as you said, there's a lot of financial language that kind of like can confuse us all. So having a chat, a one-to-one chat, or actually talking of one-to-one chats, I did want to say, so it doesn't matter where you are in the country. Chris can have a kind of a video call with you like this, or just a call on the mobile, you know, however so, to fit around your kind of personal kind of diary, and obviously Chris will book you in, and he's got an online booking form that we were talking about earlier. So I'll give you the link in a wee bit, so you can book in with Chris. Okay, so we talked about using the kind of direct contribution from the company to your pension pot, and I think that's a cracking way of kind of helping with your taxation situation. And I'm kind of like wondering if there's any way of kind of other ways at all, or if that's a core way of structuring your business in terms of kind of any legitimate, I've got to use the word legitimate here, legitimate ways of kind of reducing the tax burden. Because, you know, I mean, I think you're going to depress me in a minute, Chris, because you're going to give me a rundown on what's happening this year with tax rises and stuff, because there's a lot going on, isn't there? Yeah,
at the moment, corporation tax is still 19%. It's been there for a couple of years now, but it is well known that corporation tax is increasing to 25%, so that'll be from next year. So it does depend on the business profitability. So for businesses with profits below 50,000, the corporation tax rate will remain at 19%. But if your business profits are over £250,000, then the rate of corporation tax will be 25%. There is that gap in the middle as well. So if your business profits are between 50,000 and 250,000, then it will be possible to claim marginal relief as well. So there is a gradual increase between 19% and 25%, depending on what your business profits are. So it is important to know that further tax rises are coming. Unfortunately, this is another hangover from the COVID situation that we've recently had. And all the bailouts that have happened for businesses and individuals as well, that just need to be paid for. So this is one way that the government is raising taxes over the next few years, just to try and reclaim some of that money back that they had to spend during the COVID period, just to keep the economy afloat. So that's one thing to consider. There's also the national insurance for employees and employers as well. That's also increasing by 1.25% as well. So for employers, the rate of national insurance is at the moment 13.8%, but that's actually increasing to 15.05% as well. So there's something else for you to consider, as well as tax increases that are coming up. So unfortunately, these are happening, but with things as they are, in order to mitigate those tax increases, by making a pension contribution and lowering your business profits, that can certainly help you save that corporation tax and keep it at the 19%, perhaps. It does depend on what your business profits are at the moment, but you can help to mitigate your corporation tax bill for sure by making legitimate pension contributions. And when I say legitimate, you can contribute as a gross amount up to £40,000 per annum per individual. Wow. But if you haven't made contributions in the last 3 years and you had a pension scheme available, then you can look back 3 years as well and make £40,000 contributions. So you can make a contribution of £40,000 this year, and then you can look back 3 years and also make the £40,000 contribution. So you can have a gross amount of pension contribution up to £160,000 in one go. So that could be a really useful way to make a big tax saving and also plan for the future as well. So that
is really good, isn't it? So again, I think if you're not quite sure how to do this, chat with Chris and the team, and they can kind of point you in the right direction. And I think just hearing what you're saying about NI increases for employers, again, being aware of that in the rates that you're quoting, guys, through your estimator express, make sure that you're adding to that. I mean, I know it doesn't sound 1.25% doesn't sound massive on its own, but yeah, it does build up to quite a significant amount over the year, and you might find out that kind of thing wipes out profits over the year.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So yeah, no wonder people start talking to people like you, Chris, because there's a lot going on in the market at the moment, and I think people could do with your advice. So moving away from the business side then, and I'm thinking perhaps the builders and personal circumstances, what would your advice be? I don't know if I'm allowed to frame it as advice. What would you think of paying off their mortgage as soon as they can, rather than paying into the pension pot? Are there any advantages in kind of clearing the mortgage first, or what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, it does depend on the individual. In terms of paying off the mortgage first, as interest rates are due to rise throughout the year, when you come to remortgage, you'll find that it'll be more expensive compared to what it was. So making lump sum payments towards your mortgage could certainly be beneficial. Now, most mortgage lenders will allow you to make a 10% overpayment of your mortgage each year. So that could certainly be beneficial to you. But it is also important to note that if you decide to do that, then you're taking away the ability to fund your retirement as well. So by saving into a pension or other tax vehicles. But I would say that, house prices, that they have gone up quite a lot. So when you come to remortgage, you may find that you better get you could have a more beneficial loan to value compared to what you did have previously. So when coming to remortgage, you do need to consider that you may get a better rate anyway, but it just does depend really on how far interest rates go up as well. And it's important as well that these need to be affordable too. So you've got to consider, you've got a bit of a balancing act as well when it comes to repaying your mortgage and also saving for retirement as well on one side. So that it's two sides of the same coin, really. You're trying to meet a goal, which would be retirement, and you can do that through paying into a pension fund, but you've also got to consider that you could save more by paying off your mortgage early too. So it does depend on the individual, but I would say keep an eye on both quite closely, because if interest rates do go up quite quickly or are due to, it may be more beneficial to pay off the mortgage first before saving into retirement pot. However, if interest rates do fall, then it may be better to save into a retirement fund as well. So it does depend. It's very much on an individual basis, but you've got to shop around as well for the best rates to make sure that you're receiving best mortgage available. We can help you for that. The market is very competitive in terms of rates at the moment, but we can certainly help you with that if you were looking to remortgage and see if we can find a better deal for you. So now may not be a bad time to do that, considering the current economic environment that we're in at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a limited window while interest rates are still not too elevated to try and pay some of your mortgage off maybe, and then pick up with your pension, knowing that we've got these rises coming, and then balancing the two as far as possible.
Sure.
Okay, and then obviously on the point of remortgages, you were saying earlier about perhaps getting your, any profits kind of locked away in your mortgage, and you can't get it. So I think, did you say 55?
There's a retirement fund at age 55.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
right,
I guess if you have done some of your repayment of your mortgage in a lump sum, you're obviously, some mortgage vehicles are going to be allowing you to take some of that back out should you need it. So I guess, again, balancing those two things, how much you want to lock away, how much you want to reduce your mortgage, but still have the ability to get some of that cash should you need it.
Sure. You can
right.
remortgage, so that you can have a lump sum if you wanted to remortgage again, but you have a higher mortgage balance. You can do that if you've got the equity within the property to do that, and you can afford it as well. So that is an option as well when coming to remortgage. If you did want to take some of the money out of the house, then you can certainly do that when it comes to remortgage time. But that just depends on your circumstances as well. So anything along those lines, then it's certainly worth seeking advice before you do that, because it can change the amount you pay on a monthly basis.
So, and that's a good point, because that might free up, if you're able to get a better rate, might free up some monies to be able to pay into the pension pot. Your net situation might be the same, but you've actually, if you've saved 100 or 2 on your mortgage each month, because your loan to value is better, you've got a better rate, etc. You then can take that couple of £100 and stick that in your pension. So all good stuff. It's kind of all interlinked, isn't it, Chris? You've got to see the whole picture.
Everything is. I mean, you can't look at things in isolation. You can't just look at your mortgage, let's say, in isolation. You've got to look at that in the grand scheme of things. Everyone has so much going on in their lives, and that it is very much a balancing act, and knowing which is the best option or most suitable option. Certainly worthwhile speaking to a professional around that, so that they can help you, because they may have knowledge or experience in the particular area that you're currently concerned of. But I think in terms of the longer planning, because it is long-term planning that we specialize in, having someone to help you at all stages of life and to help you get to where you want to be is really, really valuable. I don't think enough people would recognize the value that can be brought, not just in terms of investment returns over the longer term, but also getting to where they want to be. So the dual benefit is that you probably would be better off by seeking financial advice, and also making sure that you get what you need in terms of your life goals at each stage of life as well. So it is very much interlinked, certainly from the business side of things, from the mortgage, from your own personal situation, your own savings, and your own goals as well, with the family as well. So there's an awful lot to consider, because everyone's got very busy lives, they've got very full lives, and they're all very closely linked together, a lot more than what you think. So certainly making sure everything's tied in together over the long term and staying on track is very, very valuable, and I'd recommend it to anyone, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, on that point, I'm going to say again, at the end of the session, in a few minutes, I'll give you details of that hour session you can have with Chris, and then you can piece that together, as I said, with the kind of the cash flow planning, whether that's personal or business, with James. And I know you said before that on the mortgage side, you've got members of the team that can help with that as well.
I certainly deal with that.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so you can run through your own situation with Chris, and he should be able to point you in the right direction. I've certainly learned a few things today, so thank you.
That's okay.
So before we round off, because this is an interesting one, actually. I'm talking about selling the business as a way of creating income for your retirement, or maybe reinvesting that in another venture. So I guess, is selling a building company an option for building firm owners? Could many do that? Or is it more a case of winding it down or handing over the reins?
Yeah, I mean, it does depend on your views towards it. Certainly selling the business would be an option if it's got a value or a substantial value to it. It may not be a tangible value. For instance, you could have offices, you could have employees, you may have a lot of stock left in the business, but there's also things like business reputation as well. So that wouldn't be a tangible value of the business, but could certainly be worth a lot if you've got a good reputation within the local area, your local town, and you've got a good customer base, you've got a good client base, you've got repeatable business. So these are all things which would add to the value of the business. So it does depend on the nature of your business, what kind of work you do, whether it's just one-off pieces for one client and then you move on to the next. But it does depend on a number of factors and the size of your business as well, and whether or not you'd want to sell it to a third party, or whether or not you'd want existing employees to buy out the business or management buyout, or whether or not you want to pass it on to the children as well. So there are certainly different options for you, but if you do have a reputable business that is very profitable, then that would certainly be a good thing to do if you are looking to exit through that route. So yeah, selling a business may be the right thing to do for some of them, but for others, if it's something you're looking to wind down and you have been doing for a number of years already, then that probably wouldn't be the best option, and it'd be best just to close up shop when ready to retire.
Okay. And I think if you are thinking of kind of selling the business because you think, I've got a really good business here and I'm, the best in my town, I've got a really solid reputation, we've got continuously full order books, got a cracking management team that run things day to day, you really need to be thinking about that earlier, don't you? 5-10 years down the line, you need to have that, that in your mind. That's what I'm trying to build to. Sure. Obviously, you can do all the other bits that we've been talking about in terms of kind of like your pensions planning, building up your assets in your house, that kind of thing. But that is a longer term project to build value in the business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, I guess that comes with some financial planning and support from, I think that, well, let's call it like it is, from a consultant, like, within the Comera Professional team, providing advice on it. On a practical note, though, I would say that if this is something that you're thinking about doing in terms of handing the business over, or you're wanting to sell up, you've got to start making yourself actually redundant. You've got to make sure that you're not indispensable on a day-to-day, and that's quite hard, I think, for some company owners, because they do a good job. They've had their eye on this, and it's been their baby for so long. You've got to start to make sure that you're indispensable, that the things can carry on without you day to day. That might involve good systems. Certainly requires a good management team. And obviously, I'm going to say this, shameless plug, HBXL software is going to make that a lot easier. And we genuinely have a testimonial from a customer who said the software suite end-to-end allowed me to retire earlier than I thought I would, because I took on profitable works, and I was able to kind of retire comfortably off the back of that. So you estimate your quote, your reports, all the profit analysis, the cash flow, build programs, your contracts, oh my gosh, you go on and on and on. If all of that is produced automatically, it takes the admin burden out, but that organization should help you build a more profitable business, and also show potential buyers that you're a sound enterprise. So I have touched on cash flow forecasting in the bigger sense, not just on the individual projects. But James Powell, an accountant and a colleague of James's at Comera Professional, he spoke a couple of months back about the importance of forecasting and managing overheads, and I'd recommend both that video and also reaching out to him for your complimentary 60 minutes on your cash flow questions. So, wow, gosh, we've covered a lot, Chris. I feel like I've been talking for Britain.
That's it.
So I know we could talk longer as well, but that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour, hopefully, for our viewers, and hopefully we've been helpful.
Yeah.
So in summary, I guess, as always, I say this every time, you've got to run your business smartly. You need to keep your overhead costs down as much as possible, but on the flip, making sure your estimates are accurate. You're taking account of inflation in those quotations that you're putting out there, keeping your eye on your profit margins, and that remains intact through decent management of your projects. Loads of software tools, including build projects, coming soon to help you do that. And that's because your profits are going to come. Your pensions are going to come from your profits. Sorry, I was eating my words there. That's going to enable you to fulfill those later life kind of aspirations. So the more profit now, the bigger the pension contribution, the bigger the payout at the end. And obviously, if you want to talk pensions, you can talk to Chris. That and the other ways of kind of extracting value from assets, as we said, for example, you might have a rental property, or you might have other assets that I can't think of right this second, but I know you take account of it all in the big picture. So I'll be happy to talk to you about that. And obviously, if you're considering selling your business in the future, start now. Like your pension planning, you've got to start early to get it right, run tight ship, building value, and make it easy for other people to pick up when you leave off. So if you've got any questions from this session, please do get in touch. Contact details at the end, and book in your hour conversation with Chris, and details will be on the screen now. And finally, I'd just like to thank you, Chris, for joining us today.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm sure it's been useful for our viewers.
Yeah, very much enjoyed it. Thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, it's been great. Great. I'm excited to get on the phone and sort a few more things out my end.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'll be in touch. So thank you for everybody watching. Beat me to calling Chris, please.
Yeah.
Make sure that you take advantage of this time, and he can point you in the right direction. And keep your life goals in mind, guys. We get so busy, so focused on the 8 till 10 o'clock at night working. I'm sure everyone's saying it's not a 9 to 5 in our lives. It's much longer day than that. So keep your life goals in mind, and the Comera team can help you try and plan for it.
Yeah, try and finish by 5 p.m. I think that's a good piece of advice.
If only. There's a Dolly Parton song that I want to start singing there.
Yeah.
I don't know how many building firms run 9 to 5. I don't know if it's possible, but yeah, it's a good aspiration at any rate.
I'd say, yeah, certainly live your life. That's certainly another piece of advice as well. Don't spend all your time on the business.
Yes.
Spend time with the kids, with the family, going out, go and see friends, and etc. I think it's a very, very important thing to do. So we've been locked up for 2 years. So I'd say as well, I mean, we all have, like I said, we all have very busy lives, whether it's running the business or in a professional capacity. But don't forget the rest of your life as well. I think that's very, very important. So.
Yes. Yeah. So Chris, I know that wasn't what you were intending, but I think it's a nice segue back. Chat with the guys at Comera, because they can help with that. So it's one less thing. I don't know about you guys that watching, but it's one of those things that's always niggling in the back of my mind. I've got to sort a remortgage, or I've got to sort out, what I'm doing with my pension. And they're on the to-do list for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And which is embarrassing, isn't it? It's just thinking, crikey, I just need to find an hour or two to have a conversation and then hand it over to someone who knows what they're doing to sort it out for me. So get on and book that appointment. And if you don't have Estimator Express guys watching, or any of the other software solutions, and you fancy a demo, feel free to book in on one of those. Again, contact details there. And if you would like a refresher, an onboarding session with your software, don't let it sit there not being utilized as it should be. We are delighted to talk you through your software. So again, get in touch on that front. And on that point, I'm going to draw breath and say thank you, everybody, and goodbye from us, from our homes, and hopefully to yours. We thank you for attending. All right, take care, Chris.
Great, thank you very much.
Cheers.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.